Welcome back to XYZ Talk Radio, the podcast that loves America enough to tell it when it's full of shit. It's July, baby. That magical time of year when we celebrate freedom with exploding Chinese imports, slant bald eagles on every campaign, and pretend like this whole thing hasn't gone off the rails. You know the drill. Flags, fireworks, and enough delusion to fill a SpaceX rocket. But this year, let's try something different. Let's celebrate the truth. The messy, uncomfortable, inconvenient, occasionally hilarious truth. Today's episode is called America, Some Restrictions May Apply. We're breaking it down into 4 brutal segments, each one a love letter to this red, white, and emotionally unstable nation. We'll start off with the freedom of myth, then we'll run the receipts. After that, a little roast of capitalism. And finally, we're ending with a game. You might be American if. Spoiler alert, if you're listening to this in a food desert while dodging medical debt collectors, congratulations, you've already won. So let's get into it. Ah, yes, the land of the free. A phrase we love to slap on everything from bumper stickers to beer cans. But here's the catch. Most of that freedom comes with fine print, and I'm talking real tiny font, like terms and conditions may apply, data rates may vary, and freedom sold separately. See, in America, you're free as long as you don't step out of line. You're free to vote. If you can find a polling station that wasn't mysteriously shut down in your zip code, you're free to speak your mind. Unless your boss sees your post on your lunch break and HR suddenly wants to have a conversation. You're free to protest, as long as you fill out the correct paperwork, stay in the assigned free speech zones, and don't block traffic, hurt feelings, or make the news. Hell, you're even allowed to go medically bankrupt from an emergency that could have been prevented if we treated healthcare like a human right instead of a damn scratch-off ticket. And before you call me un-American, let's be clear. I don't hate freedom. I hate lies dressed up like freedom. Like, don't piss in my lemonade and tell me it's liberty. You ever notice how the word freedom only shows up when somebody's about to get screwed? We're defending freedom means we're starting a war. Freedom of choice means we just defunded your options. Right to bear arms means thoughts and prayers, good luck with your trauma. Freedom in America is like unlimited texting in a dead zone. Technically there, but good luck using it. Only in America can you work 3 jobs, still need food stamps, and get told you're living the dream. So yeah, land of the free, if you don't look too close. But let's go ahead and do what most avoid like the plague. Let's take a closer look. Let's look at the facts. Now I know some of y'all might be thinking, okay, but it's still better here than most places. And sure, that's what they say, until you start actually looking at the numbers. So let's do that. Because while I might not have all the answers, I do have all the facts. And spoiler alert, the facts don't care about your patriotic feelings. Let's start with a fun one, healthcare. America spends more per person on healthcare than any other developed country, and we still have some of the worst outcomes. Infant mortality, trash. Life expectancy, dropping. Medical bankruptcies, higher than the fireworks budget in Texas. And speaking of fireworks, education. The US ranks 30th in math and 27th in science worldwide. But hey, at least we're teaching kids how to pass standardized tests and pledge allegiance to debt. You want more? Gun violence. The US has over 120 guns per 100 people. That's more guns than people. And yet somehow we're still shocked every time someone turns a school into a war zone. Land of the armed, home of the bulletproof backpack. You know what we are number 1 in though? We are number 1 in incarceration, which is fucking ironic. We're not number 1 in freedom, not number 1 in peace. We're number 1 in prison population. We lock up more people than China, and they have way more people. So it would stand to reason that per capita they'd have more criminals, more people in prison. You know what else? We're one of the only developed nations without paid parental leave. But don't worry, thoughts and prayers are going to raise your children. We rank 41st in freedom of press. But go ahead, keep yelling about how the media is the enemy while Tucker Carlson reads Kremlin scripts in flannel. We're also slipping in the happiness rankings. Apparently, blind patriotism doesn't buy serotonin. And the sad thing is these facts aren't new. They've just been buried under hashtags and hot dogs. This country was built on contradictions, and we've just gotten better at marketing the misery. The American dream is hanging on by a thread, and that thread is made in China. So no, I don't have all the answers. But when you start seeing the same story play out in schools, in hospitals, in prisons, and in paychecks, it's hard to keep pretending that it's just a coincidence. Or just a you problem. The numbers are screaming, the flags are waving, and the country's trying real hard not to make eye contact. And maybe that's by design. Because if we all started to look a little too closely, we might realize we've been sold a freedom fantasy. And that fantasy is wrapped in red, white, and unpaid bills. So let's take a moment to talk about that fantasy. Let's talk about capitalism, America's favorite religion. If there's one thing America does better than facts, it's monetizing delusion. Welcome to the land of the $8 hot dog, $800 insulin, and billion-dollar fireworks shows funded by debt. I mean, let's be real for a moment. Patriotism is America's most profitable export. You got military worship merch, red, white, and blue Bud Light cans, and Don't Tread on Me t-shirts made in Bangladesh by someone who makes a grand total of fucking 38 cents an hour. July 4th? It's not a holiday, it's a clearance event. It's where your love of this country gets turned into coupons and profits. Buy one, get one flag free. Fireworks, freedom fries, and fast food feasts bought to you by the same corporations lobbying to keep your wages low. This segment brought to you by Megacorp, because nothing says liberty like being 3 missed paychecks away from homelessness. Megacorp, we own the dream. You ever notice how every patriotic ad has some sweaty dude building some shit with his bare hands, but it never shows the CEO moving his assets to the Cayman Islands? I mean, we've got tanks in the streets and potholes on the freeways. We can drone strike a wedding from 7,000 miles away, but somehow your city can't keep the power on when it rains. Support the troops means slapping a decal on your truck and not actually pushing for VA reform. Back the blue until it's time to fund training or deal with corruption, because ain't nobody got time for none of that. The small government folks still want a military with the GDP of a space empire. Make that make sense. Billionaires are shooting themselves up into space, while on the ground we have nurses working doubles and teachers buying supplies out of their own pockets from Dollar Tree. And they keep telling us if we work hard, we'll succeed. But what they really mean is work hard enough to barely survive, but not so hard that you start questioning why you're broke. They don't want you digging into those questions and starting to find out that it's really just all by design. Late stage capitalism is like being in a pyramid scheme where the people at the top already sold the ladder. And so here we are, America Inc., land of the overworked, home of the brand loyal. You're not a citizen here. You're a customer with a tracking number. And if that stings, good. Because it's time we stop pretending that buying a flag means you're free. Let's stop gaslighting ourselves and call it what it is. And speaking of gaslighting, let's end this episode with a little list. Something fun, something relatable, and something that might be a little too accurate. You might be American if. So at this point, you might be asking, how the hell did we get here? And the answer is simple. It's been the blueprint since day one. Welcome to the United States, where dysfunction is a feature, not a bug. Let's wrap this up with a game I like to call You Might Be American If. You might be American if you think universal healthcare is communism, but GoFundMe is freedom. You might be American if you'll fight over a flag, but ignore a homeless veteran sleeping under it. You might be American if your job gives you pizza instead of a raise, and you call it company culture. You might be American if your credit score matters than your character. You might be American if you believe billionaires earned it, but poor people just made bad choices. You might be American if you live in a food desert and still think it's all about personal responsibility. You might be American if You call it the land of opportunity while working 2 jobs and still can't afford rent. You might be American if your gun has more rights than your uterus. You might be American if you trust a corporation more than a scientist. You might be American if you scream freedom while banning books. You might be American if you think protesting injustice is un-American, but storming the Capitol is just expressing frustration. You might be American if you're drowning in debt, but still manage to order DoorDash 3 times a week. You might be American if you won't take a free vaccine, but you'll trust supplements from a gas station bathroom. You might be American if you believe Jesus would have voted for a guy who builds golden toilets. You might be American if you support family values while defending child labor loopholes. You might be American if you think history is woke if it doesn't make you feel patriotic. And finally, you might be American if you laughed at all of that and still think none of it applies to you. Look, I'm not trying to burn the flag. I'm just tired of being wrapped in it while getting robbed blind. Real patriotism isn't parades and platitudes. It's calling bullshit when your country starts selling you the illusion of freedom instead of the real thing. And here's the thing, if you care about something, you fight for it. And sometimes that means being honest about how broken it is. This has been XYZ Talk Radio. Unfiltered, unbought, and probably flagged by the algorithm. Until next time, stay loud, stay sharp, and stay dangerous.